Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel on our continuing voyage to become better blues players. My name's Mark and in this lesson we're going to look at how to play over a slow blues in the key of C. Now this is heavily influenced by a couple of Clapton tracks, Someday After a While and Have You Ever Loved a Woman from the 24 Nights live record. The solo that I've come up with features 4 licks in the style of Clapton, 2 that are kind of B.B. King-ish as well, although B.B. King was obviously a big influence on Clapton. And there's one at the end as well that's kind of got a bit of a Stevie Ray influence on it as well. So the way the lesson's going to work, you're going to see me play a set of example licks over a backing track, 12-bar blues, slow blues in the key of C, so that you can hear all the licks in context. Then what we'll do is we'll come back and I'll pull all the licks apart and you can learn to play them. And I'll slow them down and everything so you can see how they're played. Then what we're going to do is we'll talk about the note choice, why I've gone for certain licks, how you should approach playing a slow blues, that kind of thing, tone as well, techniques, all of those kind of things. So to start with, we're going to have the example solo. So here it is. So that was the example solo there, and what I'll do now is I'll teach you all the licks one by one, pull them apart with tab on screen. What I will say before we start is if you'd like a copy of the tab, please send me an email asking for C7 slow blues, because I did a slow blues in A previously about a year or two ago. So to make sure you want this lesson, make sure you call it the C7 slow blues. If you send me the email, my email address is in the description below. I'll reply with the tab. Also, the backing track for this is available. So the track you just heard me play over, that's a separate track on YouTube. And again, see the description for the link to that. So you can practice it yourself or just jam over and improvise your own licks. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll get started and here's lick 1. So in the example, lick 1 goes like this. Okay, and here it is nice and slow. Okay, important thing with this, and if you're familiar with my lessons, you'll be well aware that I kind of do this on practically every lesson, is that the lick starts before the band comes in. So the important point is that when we get to, you got a 4 count, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the band come in on the 1 with the C7. Okay, and before that, when the band come in on the 1 of the first beat, you want to land that note there. So all the notes that precede it are kind of running up to it. So you get this. And then when the band comes in, you're landing this note. Okay, really important thing about the timing. So you listen to it, it counts 1, 2, 3, and then you come in and you're playing this over the 4th beat of the preceding bar, landing that big note on the first beat of the main bar of the solo. Okay, there's the timing. Actual notes, we are starting on 8th fret of the G string, hammering on to 9. Then what we're playing is 8 on the B string, and then playing 10 on the B string. So far we've got this. And then what we're doing is we're catching the root note, which is the C, 8th fret top E, and then sliding 11 on the B into 13 on the B, which again is the same note. So that's the same note as there. Okay, so the whole lick so far, nice and slow. 1 and a, 2 and a, 3 and a. And then end the lick just by grabbing this top E string, 11th fret, and just bending it slightly sharp. Okay, put the whole lick together. Here it is nice and slow. I should say when you're landing that 13 on the B string, you're holding it and giving it a shake. Think about the fact that we're in the key of C, so the underlying chord is a C7. Our root note is this one here, top E string, and it's also that one there, B string at the 13th fret. So that's why we're targeting that particular note. As I say, you've seen my lessons before, you know practically every blues solo I ever start runs up to the root note. It's just nice and simple, and it works. That's just a different one. What I will say about lick 1 is that lick is absolutely taken from Clapton. As I say, what's the song called? Have You Ever Loved a Woman from 24 Nights live record, and it's also the same note, the same phrase that he starts Someday After a While with. From, I think is that from the Cradle? I think that was from the Cradle. But it's the same phrase. So that's very Clapton-esque. Okay, so that was lick 1. Lick 2 now goes like this. Okay, so the underlying chord progression, we've had a bar of C, now we're having a bar of F7. So that's the 4 chord, so we're going to tackle that by targeting the F note. And you're targeting that F note by grabbing, where are we, 13, 14, 15, 16 on the B string and bending it up a whole tone. That gives you an F. Okay, so that's the note we're targeting. And we're going to get there by playing this little run. We're going to start by sliding 12 to 14 on the G string. Then what we're going to do is we're going to grab 13 on the B, 15 on the B, and then back to 14 on the G string before finally landing 13 again on the B string. So that whole run is kind of leading into that big bend that we're going for. So that little piece, nice and slow, 12 slide to 14, then 13, 15 on the B, 14 on the G, 13 on the B. Put that all together nice and slow. Okay, and then having played that, then we're going for this big bend, and I'm going to bend it and hit it twice. Do this twice. So bend, hit, so yeah, hit it and bend, and then do the same again. So you get this. The second one, obviously, I hold and I shake. Okay, so far, nice and slow what we've got. Okay, and then what we're going to do is come off 13 on the B string. Again, our root note, that's always kind of going to be one of our safest notes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab 15 on the B string, bend it just slightly sharp. And then 13 twice on the B string. So the whole lick, nice and slow. Okay, and so that lick plays over, say the F7 chord, but by the time that lick finishes, we're back onto the C7 chord, which is why we're hanging on that C note there, root note. So root note of the underlying chord, so that's always going to sound good. Okay, lick 3 then goes like this. Okay, so this is over bars 3 and 4 of the underlying chord progression, and what we're doing is we're kind of just playing around with the with that C7 shape, but very importantly ending the lick on the flat 7, which in this case is a B flat. So that's why we're deliberately ending the lick like this. So we're not ending on the root note, we're ending on the flat 7. And that's a great way of kind of telling the listener, we're not staying on this chord, we're going to move. So you'll notice most of my licks end on a root note. In fact, I've had that a few comments recently on videos that I always end my licks on a root note. Is that a rule? No, it's good practice and it sounds good, but actually in this case, bar 4 of a 12-bar blues ending on the flat 7 is a really great note to land on. Anyway, that's the theory. The actual lick goes like this. We're going to start 10 on the G string, bend it up a whole tone, and then hit 8 on the B string. So that part goes like this. Okay, then what we're going to do is hit 10 again on the G string, then hit 8, hammer onto 9, before finally landing on 10 on the D string. So that part goes like this. I'll do that again nice and slow. Okay, and if you've been following my lessons recently about pentatonic scales, you'll know that we're actually breaking out of the pentatonic here. We're hitting a major third there. That note there, that 9, no, where is that? Yeah, that's 9 on the G string. That note isn't in the C pentatonic scale, C minor pentatonic. We'll talk about that at the end of the lesson after I've gone through the licks. Anyway, so far we've got this. And then we end by playing 8 on the top E, 8 on the B, and then finally resting on 11 on the B string. I'm giving that a bit of a shake. So put the whole thing together nice and slow, we get this. Okay, that was lick 3. If you're enjoying these lessons, there is a benefit to the Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters for this particular lesson are getting an additional rhythm lesson. So I show all the rhythm parts that I played in the backing track. And with all my lessons now, they get the original solo as well, but slowed down to 3/4 speed with tab on screen, because that's easier to play along with. So if you're a Patreon supporter, watch out for those. They'll be on the Patreon page, and hopefully that'll help. And of course, I paste the tabs and everything there, so you can grab them yourself. You don't have to email me. Okay, so yeah, Patreon supporters, watch out for that. That was lick 3. Lick 4 now goes like this. Okay, slightly unusual sounding lick. We've moved to the underlying chord is now an F7, so we're going to highlight those the notes of an F7. So that's why we're choosing these particular notes. We start with 8th fret on the B string, hammer on to 10, then 8 on the top E, back to 8 on the B string. So far we've got this. Okay, then what we're going to do is grab the top E string at the 11th fret, bend it up to 13, and then back down to 11. And you're picking it when you get back down to 11. You're going to hold that note for a moment. And then what we're going to do is we're going to play 8 on the E string, 10 on the B, and 10 on the G. So let's do this in 2 parts. The first part goes like this. So from the start of lick 4, first part goes like this. And then the second part, so far what we've got is 8 on the top E, 10 on the B, 10 on the G. Okay, you'll notice I'm outlining an F chord there. So if you think of your F chord, that bar chord there, I'm outlining that. Okay, so what we've got is 8 to 10 to 10. Next, we're going to play 8 on the B string to 10 on the G string. So far that second half goes like this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to slide 8 to 10 in on the G string. So the second part, nice and slow. Put the whole lick together, nice and slow. Here it is. Okay, so that's what we're playing over that F chord, the 4 chord of the progression. Next, we've got lick 5, and lick 5 goes like this. Okay, this is a real Claptonism now. You'll notice this on, well, those 2 tunes I mentioned before, but particularly Someday After a While. I think he does this a couple of times. And what we're doing is we're moving from the F chord back to the C chord. So you can actually think of that about taking the middle 3 strings from an F chord and the middle 3 strings from a C7 chord, and that's what we're actually doing. So we're starting ring finger, and I'm using that across the D, G, and B strings. So that's kind of like taken from the F chord. And then what I'm doing is I'm going to highlight the three strings from a C7 chord, and I'm going to start by playing index finger across, again, D string, G string, and B string, all at the 8th fret, but immediately hammer on with my middle finger on the G string at the 9th fret, but still trying to leave those other 2 strings ringing out. So you get this. And it gives the sound of that C7 chord. So the whole C7 chord's that, but we're just playing this part. So you can think of it as playing like an F to a C, but we're actually doing it like this. Oh, and that's the other important thing. What Clapton will do is, after he hits it, he won't just hold it, he'll slide it down. So you get this. Okay. So, okay, that was lick 5. Lick 6 now is again over the C7 chord, and it goes like this. Okay, and I'll do it nice and slow. Okay, so I've put this lick in quite deliberately because there's been a few comments recently about the fact that and it's not a criticism, it's just people genuinely asking. I always end my licks on the root note. In this case, what I'm doing is I'm deliberately not ending on a root note, I'm ending on the major third of the underlying chord. So if you think of the underlying chord, you see 7, where your middle finger sits in that chord, that's the note I'm ending on. I do like to end on root notes, but actually ending on any note which is part of the underlying chord is also really good. And I just like the sound of this lick. So we're starting by grabbing 11 on the B string, bending it up a whole tone, then grabbing top E at the 8th fret, so you get this. Then what I'm doing is I'm coming off 11 to 8 on the B string. Then what I'm doing is I'm G string 10 off to 8 and hammer on to 9. Holding that 9 and giving it a shake. So the whole lick nice and slow. Okay, so that was lick 6. Lick 7 now goes like this. And the important thing here is that the underlying chord has moved to a G7. So what we're going to do is we're going to target the note of D, because D is in the underlying chord of G. It's the second in the scale of C. So D is 1 step up from C. So you go C, D, and it's the second. But it also functions as it's part of the underlying chord of G. So that's kind of why we're targeting this particular note. This is, to me, is quite a B.B. King style lick. He would target that note quite a lot when it went to the 5th chord. Okay, if you didn't understand any of that, don't worry about it. Just enjoy the lick. What we're doing is we are aiming to land that 15 on the B string at the point the chord changes and moves to the G. That's all you kind of need to know about that. So we're going to start with G string slide 12 to 14, grab 13 on the B string, back to 14 on the G string. So far we got this. Back to 13 on the B string, and then landing 15 on the B string. So everything that we've got up to now goes like this. And as I say, that's a note you want to land on the start of the bar when we've gone to G. And then what we're playing is back to 13 on the B string, 15 on the B again and bend it slightly sharp, and then back to just 15 on the B. So those last three notes go like this. Okay, and again nice and slow. Okay, and with all of those little incidental bends that I'm doing, most of the time it's kind of up to you how much you're bending that, because how dirty you want it to sound. Do you want it to sound quite dirty? Or do you want it to sound, don't bend it at all and have it sound quite sweet? It's up to you. That's all about expression and how you want to do it. Every time I played it, did it slightly different. That's just the dynamics of playing a tune like this. Okay, so that's the whole lick. Let's do the whole lick nice and slow. Okay, then we come up to lick 8. Lick 8, underlying chord progressions now move back to the F. So what we're going to do is we're going to target the F note. We're going to play it, and it actually goes like this. Okay, and what we're doing is we're actually starting it just immediately before the chord progression moves to F. We're just going to, it's kind of like the last beat of the bar of G. We're going to grab 13 on the B string. It's kind of like a little lead-in note. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab, 16 on the B string and bend it up a whole tone, because that's going to take you to the note of F, which is the 4 chord. So, and we do that 4 times. So you get this. Okay, but the 4th one, actually, you don't just hold it up, you bring it up and bring it back down. So the 4th one goes like this. Okay, so far, everything we got nice and slow. And then what we do is we come off to 13 on the B string twice. And the important thing is those big bends, you want to hit those on the beat. So so listen to the drums in the underlying track as the drums hitting that beat. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're coming off to the 13 there. I hope that makes sense. That's the timing of the lick anyway. Okay, so that was over the F chord. So we've gone from a G to an F, and now we're going back to the C chord, and we play this for lick 9. Okay, and I'll pull that apart and go through that in sections. So the first section goes like this. Okay, so we're grabbing, where are we? 11 on the B string, up a whole tone, grab 8 on the top E, back to 11 on the B, back to 8 on the B string. So that first section goes like this. Okay, and one more time, nice and slow. Okay, the next section then goes like this. Okay, and this is the Stevie Ray kind of influenced lick. This is using an idea that he played on Texas Flood on the intro. So what we're doing is we're starting 10 on the B string, 10 on the G string, bend it up a whole tone, and then what we're doing is we're coming off to 8 on the G string, bending it slightly, well, not bending it slightly sharp, bending it a semitone, so it becomes the same as if you're playing fret 9. So far, actually, we got this. Okay, that's those notes. Then what we're doing is playing 10 on the D string, and then what we're doing is coming back to 8 on the G string, and this time hammering onto the 9 before going to 10 on the D string. So that second section so far, we've got this, and we actually end it by playing 10 on the A string as well, because what we're doing is the underlying chord progression is going from a C to a G. So what we're doing is we're playing a lick that starts on a C and moves to a G, and the G is that note, 10th fret of the A string. Okay, so that middle section, that Stevie Ray influence section, goes like this, and nice and slow. Okay, and before we go on to the very last bit, I want to mention something about that bend there with the index finger on the 8th fret. If you've seen a couple of my lessons recently, I got some questions about bending, string bending. I always said, always bend with, you know, with the ring finger. We're putting 2 fingers behind the string to kind of to give it some more strength. So that first note does that when we do this, but then that second note, we're bending with the index finger. And as I say, if you see my recent lessons, I said, don't bend with an index finger. Nobody does that, except Stevie Ray does it. Stevie Ray did that an awful lot. Him and probably Albert King are the only players that I can think of that really do that bend with the index finger. It's a peculiar technique, but that's where this lick comes from. So if you think about the actual notes in this section, what we're doing is we're actually playing the C. Actually, what we're doing is we're playing, where are we? The third to the major third. What's that? That's an E flat to an E. Back to the root, to the C. And then we're doing the same thing again. It's just that the first time we're doing it, instead of hammering on to that E note, 9th fret G string, we're actually bending it sharp, bending into it with our index finger. So the actual melody notes are the same. It's just that the first time you're bending and the second time you're hammering on. I hope that makes sense. Anyway, it's this little piece here. Okay, and it's just a real kind of Stevie Ray Vaughnism. I'll be honest, it's tricky to pull that one off because most of us not used to having to bend notes just with the index finger, and it can be quite tricky getting it exactly to pitch. Anyway, so far, little recap. What have we got? We've got this. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come back to 8 on the A string, 9 on the A string, 10 on the A string. But when we hit 10 on the A string, we're actually going to hold down a G9 chord. So that piece goes like this. Okay, and the G9 chord is middle finger, 10 on the A string, index finger 9 on the D string, and then the remaining 3 strings, you're using your ring finger to hold them all down at the 10th fret. Should know that chord if you're a blues player. That 9th chord is like, use it all the time. Okay, so that last section then, again, nice and slow. Okay, and again, Clapton ends a lot of his turnarounds with that, particularly on the Have You Ever Loved a Woman track. Okay, so the whole lick, nice and slow from the start. When you're used to playing it, somehow it becomes harder to play it slow, particularly to try and get that control of that bend. Anyway, that was lick 9. Lick 10 now goes like this. Okay, and lick 10 actually is just a duplicate of lick 5. So it's when we're moving from a chord back to the C chord, the C7. Clapton would do it kind of right at the end of the turnaround as well. Just as a quick recap, what we're doing is ring finger across 10th fret, D, G, and B strings, then index finger across those 3 same strings. We're hammering on with our, immediately hammer on, and that is with our middle finger onto the 9th fret while still leaving the other 2 ringing. Okay, so, and what you do is you then slide down. Okay, and up to speed. Okay, so that was all the licks. That's how to play them. Let's have a look at some of those notes now, because particularly if you've been following my recent lessons where I've been talking about minor pentatonic, because a bunch of these notes aren't in the minor pentatonic scale. And I haven't done all the lessons on box position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Thought it'd now be nice to start looking at, okay, what notes, what additional notes can we add in there? So there's a couple of really great notes that we've added in here, and what we've done really is borrowed notes from the major pentatonic, from C major pentatonic, and we're just, but I'm not really thinking of it as changing from C minor pentatonic now C major pentatonic now C minor pentatonic. The way I think about it is, I can see when I'm kind of improvising, when I was coming up with this solo, I see C minor pentatonic box position 1 there. And what I do is I also see that a couple of additional notes that you can add in. So first of all, you can add in the second, which in this case is a D. You can play that on where it would be 10th fret of the top E string. I tend to play that D note there. Where are we? 15th fret of the B string. That's a more kind of B.B. King way to approach it. If you think of box position 3, it's adding that note in there. So box position 3 would have been, okay, that's box position 3 of C minor pentatonic, but we're actually adding this note in here on the B string. Okay, and you can, the great thing about that note there, and to get those B.B. Kingisms, if you bend it that note up a whole tone, you get the major third. If you bend it up a half tone, you get the minor third. And if you just bend it a little bit, it just sounds dirty. So that's a great note for adding. Adds a bit of colour. B.B. King used that note a lot. I used it in, what was it, lick, I think it was lick 7. You'll notice I hit that one a lot. So that's the second, sometimes called the 9th. That you can use the 2nd and 9th are actually interchangeable. So that's that one. And as I said in the lesson, great to land on that note when you move to the 5 chord, because it's part of that 5 chord. Another great note to add is the 6th, or sometimes called the 13th, which is 10th fret of the B string. So you'd have noticed that in, which was it? It was lick 4. But you also add it, it's the same note, but it's the 14th fret of the G string. So that note appeared in lick 1. It also appeared in lick 2, but over here. Okay, and it probably appeared in a couple of other licks as well. So that's the 6th, or sometimes called the 13th. And what it does is, because you got that minor third in there, it kind of gives it more of a Dorian feel if you're into your modes. If you're not, don't worry about it. Just know it's a really great another note to add to the minor pentatonic to kind of spice things up. And the other one that I used an awful lot, and is probably the most important out of them, is adding in the major third. So you'd have seen in so many licks, I target this note here, which was the 9th fret of the G string. Okay, and that's just a fantastic note to add in. It takes a minor pentatonic and just sweetens it by adding the major third. When I play that note, generally, I'll either bend into it from the 2nd, or what I'll most often do is actually hammer onto it from the minor third. So you've just seen so many times in the licks we get this movement. and then immediately rest on the root note. You get those kind of things going. It's a great note to add into your minor pentatonic. As I say, these are notes all taken from major pentatonic. I don't think of them that way. I just think of them as I see minor pentatonic box position 1 shape on the neck, but I also see these additional notes then that I can add in. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about before we finish is dynamics and tone. So in the lesson, in the example, what I've tried to do is get a lot of dynamics. So you'll see certain phrases get really loud, but certain phrases get quite soft. Okay, if you listen to Clapton, particularly, as I say, that 24 Nights, Have You Ever Loved a Woman, he uses dynamics an awful lot, and really, what dynamics are. You got loud notes for really emphasizing things, really soft notes to kind of pull the audience in, so you got to kind of lean in to hear them a bit more. I tried to do that as much as I could. Loads of, well, all the great blues players use dynamics an awful lot. It's fantastic. I mentioned it a lot in the ZZ Top blues lesson that I did recently as well. Now, to get that really working, like the ZZ Top lesson, what I've done is I've gone for a tone where when you play lightly, it's completely clean. But when you dig in, it goes dirty. Okay, trying to really exaggerate it there. Yeah, so the tone that I've gone for is super clean or as clean as I can get it when I pick lightly, but as soon as you dig in, it goes crunchy. The way I've done that with the Black Star is I'm actually using the clean channel rather than the dirty channel. The dirty channel's got just a little bit too much grit. I could probably get it with the dirty channel if I had the gain all the way down. But just for ease of this lesson, the way I've done it is I've gone clean on this, and I'm using a pedal. Any overdrive pedal should really do this, any kind of, mild overdrive. I'm using a T-Rex Diva, and I've just got it set so the gain's kind of backed off, so it just crunches when you dig in. I did, when I was planning the lesson, I decided to use this Strat in the end, but had I used a guitar with humbuckers, I'd need to turn the gain down even further. Just use this because I'm planning on selling the guitar, so I thought I'd give it one last kind of outing before I sell it. It's really nice, sounds great. Okay, so that's a little bit about tone. If you want to kind of go with this tone, clean with an overdrive pedal that's barely on, or cleanish amp but just a hair of gain, so that when you dig in, you get the dirt, and yeah, that then helps those dynamics really kind of pop out. I hope this helps. I hope I haven't waffled too much. Hope you enjoyed the lessons, and I'll see you again.